you announced the major investment from these three big giants, what does this partnership mean for the company?
As you said, based on the world-class results that gold hydrogen's achieved on the helium and the hydrogen, we've been receiving enormous interest globally into gold hydrogen. So we commenced a formal strategic investor process at the end of last year, and we had over a dozen, global companies from around the world wanting to invest in gold hydrogen. And we came to the conclusion where we selected, these three great companies.
Welcome back to the Natural Hydrogen Investment Podcast, where we help you understand the rapidly evolving investment opportunity in natural hydrogen. I'm Anthony, chemical engineer and hydrogen enthusiast.
And I'm Morten, industry expert and founder of specialized investor Natural Hydrogen Ventures.
Today I'm actually more excited than usual, as we have a very special guest who I'll introduce in a second. I want to remind you that you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and that also you can join us on YouTube, where you can subscribe as well. On Apple and Spotify, I would recommend if you can leave us a 5-star review. We love them. Morten loves them. I love them. They're great. Also, our free 2025 investor report for natural hydrogen is getting quite a rework or a bit of a new look. So I recommend going to NatH2investing.com and downloading it. It's for free. You can get it there. You'll be subscribed to our newsletter, so it's even better, right? Win-win situation. So it's NatH2investing.com. Don't forget. Anyway, on to the episode. Today, we're joined by Neil McDonald, Managing Director of Gold Hydrogen. Gold Hydrogen, as you may or may not know, you should, is leading the charge in natural hydrogen exploration in South Australia, with the latest well results showing world-class hydrogen and helium purity levels. Just recently, as you hopefully do know if you do check our NatH2 Investing updates on LinkedIn and on our website, the company announced a landmark investment from the Japanese giants Toyota, ENEOS, and Mitsubishi. We'll discover what this means, all of this, for the company and for the industry as a whole. So I want to give a very warm welcome to Neil. Welcome to the podcast,
Anthony.
Neil.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And it's good to be here and good to see you again, Morten. And looking forward to having this great conversation today about where we're going and what we've achieved.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy. This news has blown up in a good way, of course. On LinkedIn, I posted it while we were in London. We were at the event in the geoscience event in London, and within a few days, it had passed 100 likes, tons of comments, tons of reposts, and people are just so excited. I see this uptick of followers, of attention from people in and outside the space who want now to get into natural hydrogen, who their ears are pricking up. Oh, what's going on here? This is big news for the space. So I'm very happy to hear this. And Neil, we have to start with the obvious. Congratulations. And more importantly, after you announced the major investment from these three big giants, what does this partnership mean for the company?
Yeah, look, thank you very much. Gold Hydrogen, we're very excited to have these three Japanese global companies become strategic investors into gold hydrogen. As you said, based on the world-class results that gold hydrogen's achieved on the helium and the hydrogen, and we've been receiving enormous interest globally into gold hydrogen. So we commenced a formal strategic investor process at the end of last year, and we had over a dozen, global companies from around the world wanting to invest in gold hydrogen. And we came to the conclusion where we selected, these three great companies, Toyota Motor Corporation, Mitsubishi Gas Chemical, and ENEOS Explorer, to invest with us and for us to help further exploration and development and commercial opportunities for both natural hydrogen and helium. And, Australia has had a very long relationship and successful relationship with Japanese companies investing into Australian energy projects. So it seems like a very good fit for us to be able to select these three great companies from Japan.
Well, I'll just jump in then and say again, congratulations, Neil, just not to only to gold hydrogen, but to the whole industry. The fact that some serious players now moved in, as Anthony said, people got very excited, and of course, industry needs to get excited, and we need some more activities to move in. We need more investors, and bringing in 3 big brand names, Japanese energy companies, is just perfect. So, congratulations to Gold Hydrogen, and on behalf of the industry, thank you very much. Also to Mitsubishi, Toyota, and Ineos. I especially, because this is something I preach all the time, is one thing is finding natural hydrogen, the other is what to do with it. And it seems you brought on some players who really has some thinking on how to use the hydrogen. Could you elaborate a bit on how much was this in play, and how much is part of the strategic partnership you mentioned in your release? The thoughts of how to spend this hydrogen, how to use it.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Morten. And I think it's worth noting that we're very proud to help being one of the pioneers and leaders into natural hydrogen space, and to help move the whole industry along. As I've always said, we want everyone to go well, and we wish everyone to go well, because we will all go well, and that's very important for the whole industry. And it's very exciting that these 3 companies have invested into gold hydrogen at this stage. It shows, that our world-class results are getting known, throughout the world. And I think what we have seen is that hydrogen generally is forming a very large point in globally countries moving towards a transition to cleaner energy sources. And countries like Japan and other places in Europe are actually mandating it to be more at the forefront of part of their energy mix. And what we've seen is that there is huge, just not energy usage for natural hydrogen and hydrogen generally, but there's also industry. And that's heavy shipping, transportation, and the like. But hydrogen can also be used for many other applications apart from just pure energy. And gold hydrogen, we're working towards all uses, including energy, fertilizer, ammonia, but also green methanol. Using the hydrogen to make green methanol is also another great industry commercialization opportunity. And, international shipping is making big moves right now. The largest companies in the world are making great movements now to actually convert from diesel and bunker fuel to move towards hydrogen-powered vessels, but also methanol, or green methanol in particular, powered shipping world. They're a big emitter. So I think the combination of political movement to move towards a cleaner energy source, but also environmentally, hydrogen, but natural hydrogen is at the forefront. And based on analogues around the world, including Mali, and what we believe that could be possible with us, natural hydrogen is clearly looking like a lower cost producer of hydrogen. And I'd love to discuss the difference between natural hydrogen and just green-made hydrogen or other sources as we progress this podcast today.
Well, thank you, Neil. And I just want to spell it out for any listeners who is not aware that the 3 companies of Toyota being probably the most well known is the actual automaker that has for a long time has a strategy of using hydrogen to fuel their cars. They're big on hydrogen cars, and this is something that is sometimes when we discuss hydrogen, it's a bit ridiculed. People will tell you that don't use hydrogen for transport because it will be expensive to turn electricity into hydrogen and then into basically electricity in a fuel cell motor. But this is not the case with natural hydrogen. And even if I personally think that you'll probably see out of the gates ammonia or methanol at one of the first options, if we truly find enough natural hydrogen, you would actually have a really easy, understandable business case of how this could be commercially viable because hydrogen, as it flows out of the ground after being separated, it's already fuel, meaning that you can much easier imagine a way where you sell this at maybe $5-6 at the pump that is cost parity with diesel, and then also giving a good profit to the explorers, to the guys transporting it and selling it. So eventually this could actually mean that hydrogen refueling for even cars could make great sense. But that's Toyota. Some of the more or less known is Mitsubishi. I had to look this up because Mitsubishi does so many things. There are so many Mitsubishi companies. But this is one of the really right ones. There are actually many good options in Mitsubishi. But they do chemicals. And that means they're really into green methanol, as you said, and likely have done the calculations that doing green methanol, that means expensive green hydrogen, expensive green methanol. But with the same machine, we plug away electrolyzers, put in potentially really cheap natural hydrogen, and you actually get an end product that is so much closer to being really usable because the prices will be so much lower. And of course, as they do semiconductor work, they might be into helium, just as INEOS Explorer is. It's a recently renamed company. I think it was called Nippon Exploration. It's part of INEOS, which is by some measures the biggest energy company in Japan. And they have recently invested in helium in Canada as well. So obviously some players who are really interested in what you might find. But having said that and figured that out, I guess they must be interested in the Ramsay project in itself, from a geological point of view. Could you quickly just touch on, what is it that makes the Ramsay project stand out? Or maybe you could touch on, are they truly in love with the Ramsay project, or is it the brilliant gold hydrogen team? What were the what really got them over the finish line?
Yeah, look, I'd love to say it's our gold hydrogen team who have done a fantastic job to get to where we've got to today. But look, the results that we've achieved at the Ramsay project of getting the world-class purity of hydrogen, at the 90-odd percent, 95% purity levels. And it's really an area of that one permit. We've got, a field play of over 78,000 square kilometres. That's not acres. That's a lot of acres if you want to compare it to the American standard. And just 1/3 of our current Ramsay project permit, which is one of 8 that we have, it's estimated that we could have, at best recovery, middle case, 1.3 billion kilograms of natural hydrogen. So we have scale and more scale of potential natural hydrogen could become a world-class producer moving forward. So those results are very imperative. We're in a location in South Australia where, it's accessible. We have ports nearby. We have communities nearby. It's not remote. There's some of the things, same with green methanol, like shipping out of there and being able to do it. The bioorganic waste to do all these activities. We're well placed. And in relation to the helium, that's the highest, 36.9% is the highest ever reported purities in helium ever reported. So we're very optimistic about our helium project as well and moving towards our pilot projects. No helium is produced in Australia anymore. That stopped. So we've got initial markets in Australia, and our helium-3, elevated levels, we're planning to do more exploration to improve our helium-3 results and explore for that in more detail. And as you know, as you were saying, the helium for future superconductors, semiconductors, AI, supercomputers, and do I say, to be cooling agents for future nuclear reactors and nuclear fusion reactors is very, very appealing to a lot of the global companies that are looking at us. And these 3 companies have done an extensive due diligence and wanted to proceed to be selected to come into gold hydrogen. We're very well well placed domestically for future, commercialization opportunities. But as I said, the scale that we have, it's very well placed for international and export as well. And just to make clear, Australia is a wonderful resource-rich country in all commodities, not just in minerals and gas and the like, but fruit and vegetable, agriculture, fish, the whole lot. And our population is at the size where we produce way more than we can actually consume. So we're well placed to be an export nation, as we always have been. So there's some of the things we're looking at advancing. So the Japanese companies that have invested with us wish us to continue with our exploration and development opportunities to move forward to, pilot projects for the hydrogen, and then whether that's energy, ammonia, fertilizer, and the like, and then also to the green methanol, using natural hydrogen for that purpose. And the helium, it's very valuable, very sought after commodity, and will be sought after more. Having those two commodities is really a big thing for Gold Hydrogen and our company. And I'll discuss a little bit more with you what's the difference between natural hydrogen and man-made hydrogen, and why natural hydrogen for these future development opportunities based in Australia, and what the global investors were looking for, is appealing to them, and why. But I totally agree with you, Morten, where the world is moving towards, and these companies and other companies are moving towards having hydrogen as a more suitable alternative than electrification of certain, industries. And there's a good reason for why we're well placed, and natural hydrogen generally around the world is well placed to assist these companies. And, they take short-term and long-term views. And it's just great to see that we're getting more movement, and we hope the movement keeps progressing the way it is.
Neil, you've just mentioned helium, and helium is very key in this space. I know some of these companies, including Gold Hydrogen, they're not only finding hydrogen underground, but also helium, which is a commodity very much needed. It is a more expensive commodity as well, and one that will grow as the market grows. It's a few billion, the global market of helium. And I would like to know more about Gold Hydrogen's helium revenue strategy. How are you planning to use this? What are you planning to sell it as, and to who?
Yeah, look, good question there. Now, a lot of people think that helium is only used for party balloons and squeaky voices, but there's many more applications. Medical imagery, MRIs, and also it's one of the best cooling agents in the world. So it's going to be used for semiconductors, supercomputers, AI focused. So a lot of the world's global companies are going to need helium for this new AI generation and technologies. It's also used for the cooling products in medical equipment and space and aeronautical. It currently sells for, approximately $500 to $700 US a unit. It's extremely valuable, and it's a shortage of helium worldwide. It's a strong price, and it's kept really strong. So as helium itself on a commerciality basis, and if you've got purities like we have, we're quite looking forward to our future projection and pilot projects and development of this commodity. Helium-3. Now, that is a product that countries around the world, including China, America, Russia, are looking to go to the moon to find helium-3 to bring back. Helium-3 is the ultimate cooling technology. Effectively, if helium-3 is used in nuclear fusion and nuclear reactors, it is the best cooling agent which will prevent any reactions or reactors from having mishaps. Now, helium-3 is only found at the moment or produced by the degradation of nuclear warheads over a 12-year lifespan to make helium-3. And that is becoming less common. Now, helium-3, like us, can be found or has been found around in different parts of the world naturally in the ground. But what has happened is a lot of the sources where helium-3 has been found has been in locations that are glacial or volcanic, where you just cannot go and extract it. It has been detected from scientific purposes, but you can't
Right.
actually go there with, drill rigs and equipment and actually produce it in normal volumes. There is technology, companies around the world now, and the global helium companies have built membrane technology where flowing helium, including helium-3, can be separated at surface and bottled. Now, helium-3 is the answer to nuclear fusion. You'll see guys like Bezos, Gates, and the like with their ventures are looking for nuclear fusion, and they will need, multiple kilograms of helium-3 per year to be used for the cooling agents, as well as other applications. Helium-3 sells for approximately $16 million a kilogram. So a gas bottle of 4 kilograms for your barbecue or your heaters is close to, over $50 million of value of helium-3. But the thing is, it is rare, extremely rare, but if you can find it on land or terrestrial and there's equipment that can separate it and bottle it, that's very exciting. So part of our helium plans moving forward is to advance and develop our helium of our project, including helium-3. But early days on the helium-3, but we're very excited by the future of what it could be.
Right. Exciting. It is very exciting, isn't it? Thank you, Neil, for such a comprehensive response. And actually, you mentioned something which we were leading up towards, which was about precisely what is natural hydrogen. And I wanted to know this from a leader in the space, because many of the people who will find this episode, who will look at this and see, gold hydrogen has something to say, they will not know about natural hydrogen. They will not be aware of what it is or fully aware of what it is and what the opportunity is. So I want to take this opportunity, Neil, to ask you as a leader in the space, what is natural hydrogen from your point of view? And what is that is causing so much interest in these times, these 2025 especially?
Yeah, look, thanks, Anthony. Not the geologist, but the simplified version I like to inform investors and other parties with our education is that hydrogen generally is the H2 out of the H2O. And natural hydrogen is created in the ground, or they call it white hydrogen or geological hydrogen. And that is where there's natural geological reactions where water is either through serpentinization or radiolysis, react with iron-rich rocks and other purposes, and it splits, and the hydrogen migrates its way to the surface, and then it gets sealed and trapped. So it gets trapped in the ground, and it sits there. So we're very lucky geologically on the Ramsay project that we have many ingredients which are actually creating the production of natural hydrogen. And a lot of people are only aware of what they call green hydrogen, which is made with electrolysis. And we're energy people, and some places in the world, green hydrogen and other forms of energy is more suitable for certain locations. But if it's under your feet, you should use it, because it's probably going to be the most commercial and effective way of providing energy and other applications for your energy sources. And what happened was Gold Hydrogen's acreage is that close to 100 years ago, the head geologist of South Australia and a syndicate of explorers were in the oil rush. Like most of the world were looking for oil and gas, and they drilled 3 oil and gas wells looking for oil and gas, and they were unsuccessful 3 times. But they tested for all gases, and they took that data and they found up to 89% purity of hydrogen. But there was no market specifically for hydrogen back then as an energy source or other applications. It's a little bit like lithium in the mining space.
Okay.
And in Australia, everyone knew decades ago to 100 years ago when they were looking for iron ore or gold or other commodities, they found lithium, but there was no market for it. Now there's a market worldwide for hydrogen, and it's emerging, and it will form a big part of the energy mix. There's been a big push around the world for green hydrogen to be the environmental best option that people believed. And that's fine. Technology changes. As I said to some parties, and I'm getting off track here a little bit, but once upon a time there was VHS video recorders and there was beta video recorders. VHS survived. Then in the phone world, there was the BlackBerry, and then the smartphone came along. Technology changes, and some things will prevail, but better technology comes across. To make green hydrogen, you need to mine the materials, extensive open cut mining to find the materials to make solar panels and wind turbines. Then you have to construct those solar panels across land, sometimes quite, pristine land or farming land. Then you need to build electrolysis factory in construction. Then you have to find water. And water in most countries is quite often a valuable resource. To do that, to make 1 kilogram of man-made hydrogen, or I call it factory hydrogen, it's hundreds of millions of dollars quite often before one molecule comes out. Drilling a natural hydrogen well, which is naturally formed in the ground, you can drill a 7-inch hole that goes down 500 meters even, to get the natural hydrogen. It could be 1 kilometre, could be 2 kilometres, but it can be as shallow as 500 metres, which is what we're seeing on our project area. Mali in Africa, I think, is even shallower, from around the 150 metre to 500 metre mark as well. And we have great relationships with our landholders and our community and stakeholders, because drilling a natural hydrogen well, it's simple existing oil and gas techniques of engineering and equipment. You clear a little bit of a paddock of about a size of a soccer field, and all the equipment comes on. You drill the well, you test the well, you flow hydrogen to surface and helium, and then once you've finished that process, you remediate that soccer field. And the only area we're taking up right now, and after our Ramsay 1 and 2 wells, is an area of about 5 by 5 metres. Compare that to solar panels and electrolysis going across vast tracts of land. We're a very non-invasive, small carbon footprint, commodity. But even better still, like based on Mali and other analogues around the world and what we believe with these costs of what we have to do, it's quite expected that natural hydrogen will be produced at the surface at $1 a kilogram or less before transportation. Man-made hydrogen, that's Australian dollars. Man-made hydrogen in Australia, the cheapest before transportation is looking to be $5 or $6 before transportation. It could be a very big commercial advantage. And eventually, it's the consumer. It's mums, dads, families that need, what I always say, reliable energy, affordable energy, and hopefully clean energy. And I think natural hydrogen is on the way to ticking those boxes to meet the political and environmental requirements around the world. And when you can see what we've had from historical results 100 years ago and confirmed it, and then what we're doing next, coming up with our next programs and moving towards development, I think we're well placed. And look, I also note, other emerging explorers around the world trying to do this. We're probably a little bit ahead of them on some of them at the moment. But, again, I hope the whole industry goes well, because this could be a very big, not only for Australia, but for the world, when natural hydrogen progresses. Some people have said it's a little bit like the shale industry, when they created shale to get more gas and oil, or coal seam gas. This is a whole new frontier of but clean energy.
I like the comparison with shale. I think that it's a great parallel that you're making here. I think we are at a very early stage of this industry. Most people, they don't realize that yet, the potential that there is right here. And this has brought a lot of questions, a lot of difficult questions. Why haven't we found it before? Why aren't we using it already? We've been drilling for so many years. We've been drilling for centuries. And then you have to remind them, this might just simply be, we're too early. We weren't looking for it. We know there are huge amounts of it underground, trillions of metric tons, if I'm not mistaken, by the USGS. So we need to start thinking more openly and understanding it might take a bit, and it might take a few years, might take a decade. But companies like Gold Hydrogen, they are going out there, they're taking the risks, they're doing the science, and they're going to be among the first to find it, which is great. I did want to know a bit more about you, Neil. Just briefly, tell me a bit more about you. What got you into natural hydrogen? What's your vision for Gold Hydrogen and for the industry as a whole?
Yeah, look, thank you. And part of that, I just would like to comment, why hasn't natural hydrogen been discovered before? And I think it's because no one has specifically gone to explore for it. And look, Mali, I take my hat off to them. But from records and discussions, there was actually drilling water bores looking for water, and they actually found hydrogen. In our case, in South Australia, they were drilling for oil and gas. Geologically, I don't think any geologists have ever got their head around the fact that it could be natural hydrogen created in this system. But I'm pretty sure they're all catching up now, based on what we're doing and other companies are trying to do around the world. And so I think that's important to note, that it's never really been looked for before, and there have been accidental discoveries. And look, our project area was an accidental discovery. They were looking for oil and gas, and water diviners looking for oil with sticks, in the old days. So, modern technology, companies weren't looking for it. Now, what I really like about natural hydrogen is, let's face it, there is, as I said, there's a world political and environmental push where not only governments, but the population, the communities, they understand that there is a need to get clean energy and for clean environment. So from my perspective, I really like the idea that this can be, for mums and dads and people around the world, will be able to have cost of living, reliable energy, reliable fuels, cheap fuels, clean fuels, industrial products can be affordably made. It helps. It helps families with the cost of living pressures around the world. They can put heating in winter and not save, because they can't afford electricity. Lights for education. Energy is the biggest education prosperity for the world. For, I don't like to say it, but, countries that have affordability problems generally, education is the biggest growth and need for those countries to get out of poverty quite often. And a lot of that's down to the cost of energy, or to have energy. So look, that really excites me. And look, it is nerve-wracking sometimes that you're on the cusp of pioneering and the like with others. But, we're confident. We know that natural hydrogen is there. And we know it could be there in an enormous amounts. And we think now it's a matter of just further exploration, engineering, to prove to the world as we progress to our development and commercialization opportunities, that this will be the future, or part of the big future for the world energy and other applications. So that's quite exciting for me to do that.
Excellent.
I totally get your excitement, Neil. It's should be obvious to anyone listening to this podcast that I'm really in deep in excitement of natural hydrogen as well. But also with the theme of the podcast being a kind of a leaning on investor interest. Instead of asking you a bit more of your hydrogen and helium discoveries, which you actually touched on early on, I think let me bridge into. And this is just my personal opinion and no recommendation, but in an earlier podcast, we discussed what investors should be looking for when looking to invest into natural hydrogen companies. And I think looking at what the first company to list as a natural hydrogen company, that being Gold Hydrogen, the stage where you are at now, if you should just walk through it quickly, that you have already drilled wells, making you one of the few companies who have real data. And yes, as someone will often tell people from this industry that nothing is being commercially produced yet, you do know that you're working in a place where you have hydrogen, you have helium, which is, from my point of view, it's a very welcome add-on income. And actually also from a let's save the climate point of view, getting a carbon-free helium instead of taking it out of natural gas is a huge reward for the environment. You have this, you work in an area where you do know you can actually get a license. For crying out loud, you have a license already. You are the biggest holder of granted hydrogen licenses in the world. So you got a lot of space to work on. And most importantly, as I think was one of the points we put on in our earlier podcast, is that you have now, again with this race, you have money to keep going. You can drill more wells, you can fulfill your plans. So I think there's a reason that you have spent well the time you had before anyone else to get going, being one of the few with the wells, and now having capital to continue your program. So sadly, I'm a private investor investing in private companies. You're a public traded companies, but just my personal opinion, looks good what you've set up in Gold Hydrogen. So, and with this, of course, next step, to really unlock your true potential would be how to move towards a commercial discovery. And that's the bridge to my next question would be, with these new funds now available for you, what do you plan to do? What's the work program in the Ramsay projects going forward? What can we expect? Are there maybe any crucial milestones to look for investors following you? Please.
Yeah, thanks, Morten. And this strategic investments from Toyota Motor Corporation, Mitsubishi Gas, and NEOS, that will help us with our next drilling and testing program. We're looking to commence that late October of this year. We're well advanced with our planning, our design and engineering. We undertook a 570 line 2D seismic survey a year ago. That's a very large 2D seismic survey. And what we have found from that 2D seismic survey is that although we've drilled world-class wells in Ramsay 1 and 2, we have not drilled in the most optimal locations. That 2D seismic data has shown that we have, numerous better optimal locations to drill in. So we've been planning to drill in these more optimal locations, drill 7-inch wells as opposed to our original, like exploration wells of 4-inch. This gives us the ability in this next program to drill with our knowledge and our data to be able to drill down through all the hydrogen systems, the helium systems, and into helium-3 basement areas, test those zones individually as we progress. And we're quite optimistic that the next lot of programs that we'll do, 2 to 3 wells in more optimal locations, is going to advance our knowledge and move us towards pilot projects for both of these commodities. And we're quite excited to move towards this phase for gold hydrogen to get to those points for investors to see that we have a plan, a large plan moving forward, just past drilling. And it's on the helium front, yes. It's interesting to note that most helium of the world, or up to date, has come from oil and gas wells as a byproduct, and generally around the 1 to 4% purity levels for helium. And they're commercial at 1 to 4% purity of helium. You know, we're seeing 36.9% purity. On our previous exploration wells, it was consistently, you know, at those high levels. And what we're expecting is to get those levels again. But when we tested both the natural hydrogen, we did get those gases to go to surface, but they were in exploration wells. So these wells are more set up to move towards future development and commercialized opportunities.
Great, great. And moving towards, new opportunities, more wells. Being in Europe, I always fear how long that would take in the European jurisdictions. You mentioned earlier natural hydrogen has something working for it as it's a smaller footprint than solar cells and windmills. But even setting up those will take a lot of time being allowed to do so in Europe. But hopefully, and I think looking from the outside, it looks like, Australia is more ready for this, accepting more that, you can use the subsurface. Sometimes people in Denmark will tell me, why do we need to disturb the subsurface? Why can't we just build windmills? Forgetting completely that somewhere in the world, there's a big hole where we dug up all the stuff for the windmills, likely Australia. So hoping, of course, that you can tell me in a minute that there should be a reasonable way forward. But also, you think, is it normally, I would say, what gets in the way to get this done? We want to build something. Who's in the way? That's lawyers and it's politicians. But then I thought, you have the right team for this because you are, I understand, you're trained as a lawyer and you have Mr. Downer as a politician. So you look like you have the right setup to speak to the guys, the regulators, so you can move ahead. Or isn't it even necessary because South Australia have planned this already?
Yeah, look, that's one, I think, a worldwide problem with managing the regulations, the compliance, or countries that still haven't changed their regulations and legislation to allow for people to look for natural hydrogen or include natural hydrogen as a gas. And South Australia were the first state of Australia to include hydrogen or natural hydrogen in the legislation to be explored for, and we were first movers there. And South Australia is a very progressive state for resources generally, including oil and gas, copper, iron ore, and the like, but also very progressive towards decarbonisation. So they've been quite forefront and early movers in Australia. They put in the planning early, and their regulatory system has been a pleasure to deal with. It's been pragmatic and sensible and has allowed us to navigate and work with all stakeholders in a very easy fashion with government. Alexander Downer, our chairman, was Australia's longest serving foreign minister for our country for close to 12 years. He's very understanding, not just Australia, but globally, of the requirements to do business or trade and exploration. And for our global investors, he's been very helpful to be able to relay how quite comfortably and easily it is to explore for natural hydrogen, specifically in South Australia as well. So we count ourselves grateful and thankful that we're in a jurisdiction that is quite progressive and supportive of natural hydrogen exploration. Morton, and we're also advocates for other states in Australia and the world to hopefully follow some of the ways that Australia or South Australia has been addressing this future.
Thank you very much, Neil. And just final comment would be, of course, that if you had been an early stage privately held explorer, I would have scored you very very high on team. Knowing also your geological team as well. So just that was the final remark on this. I think I'll leave it to you, Anthony, to fire off some of the last questions.
Yeah, fantastic. And thank you, Morten. And thank you for your response, Neil. Especially, it makes me very happy to have you on this podcast because you are the first company that comes here to join us. We've decided to just bring Gold Hydrogen on, speak with the leaders in Australia, and understand more about what drives you and what moves the company forward. Now, there's a lot of people who will be watching this who might be interested in investing in Gold Hydrogen, or they might already be investors. I'm aware that you recently created what is called the Investor Hub platform. So this is a beautiful part of their website, in case you haven't checked their website before on goldhydrogen.com, which is it gives you the share price and a few more bits of information that you can use. What can investors and stakeholders expect from this resource, Neil, just to give this a bit of awareness?
Yeah, so thanks, Anthony. I'll go back one step, and I hope you guys don't mind. About 4 years ago, when we created natural hydrogen and applied for these tenements, and I was walking around like Australia's largest oil and gas conferences, and people say, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, we're exploring for natural hydrogen." And probably about 80% of those colleagues thought I was absolutely crazy and losing my mind. A year later, there was probably about 40% of people still thought we were crazy. And about a year after that, when we got the results, everyone was going, "Oh, of course, that was easy. It was always there," you know. So we've gone from absolutely crazy to almost being mainstream. And part of that journey, Gold Hydrogen did a really specific education. We've tried to educate people on LinkedIn and other forums, our websites, and our emails to our shareholders or people that log on to our website. And I think, Morten and yourself might have seen this change over the last 3 years where it's becoming more common and accepted. And that's because of some initial work that we did in Australia, at least, and internationally to promote it. And Morten, if we were a private company, maybe we wouldn't have done that. But I think it's definitely helped the bigger industry because we are public and getting that way. And so Investor Hub's another extension where shareholders or people that register can access our information quite easily and readily. They can send us email requests and the like and reach out to us for further information or education. But also we might use that platform as well to do some future updates and educational pieces like we've done today on a very snippet level of, well, what is natural hydrogen? Where is it used? What's helium? Where is it used? So I think it's just good to interact with shareholders and for shareholders to have an opportunity, or if they're not shareholders even, but they're registered, to have an understanding of what this is, where we're at, and where this really could be going. And, we're optimistic and confident about what we're planning for the future success. And we've had enormous global interest and extensive due diligence. So those companies also, I believe, are aligned with us that there is an enormous future for natural hydrogen and helium. So I think we're still at the forefront, but I think the world is starting to catch up. And by doing some of these things and what you guys are doing here can only be beneficial for the short term and long term.
100%.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm dying to add this. That when you said, investors, and because this is just something to highlight general investor interest. Normally, when companies does a raise like you just did, you would expect some big name companies putting a lot of that money down, and they'll get some kind of a discount to the recently traded price. But right now, both when you announced it and the day of recording, the price retail investors can actually buy a share right now on the stock exchange. That's a bit more than 20% lower than Toyota and Mitsubishi and Ineos just paid. Again, it's not a recommendation, but it's just interesting because it's so rarely seen that companies who spend more than 7 months doing DD, having really an interest, investing real money, they're actually paying a premium to the stock price. So let's at least list it on, things to look out for in natural hydrogen investing, because I don't think we'll see that very often going forward. But going forward, you touched on, what you plan to do, and so this will be hopefully, if I can, stick to it. My last question would be, what do you vision, gold hydrogen being in 2 or 3 years? Where we want to take this? Will you still be operating Ramsay? Do you plan to expand, conquering the world, or too much work in Australia already? From a small country, Denmark, Australia seems big enough to have a lot of things to be done. But let me know your thinking, vision for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, look, we're extremely happy with our results today, and we've got a huge position in Australia. And we look to focus on our Australian Ramsay project, and in the next 2 to 3 years, as I said, move towards development and commercial opportunities, as discussed today, for the uses of hydrogen, including the green methanol opportunities, which are very suited there, and also the helium. And however, we have learnt a lot. We understand natural hydrogen very well. We do believe that there could be other opportunities around the world for gold hydrogen as well, apart from our own Australian assets. And they're things that we might look to in the future, and with our partners and our investors and the like. But yeah, at the moment, our sole focus is the Ramsay project and our other acreage campaign. And I think it's important that we achieve the success that we're planning for, and that will make a huge difference to us and worldwide. We've got a very well-placed project to have a successful or the best green methanol project. And that's our priority. However, there are opportunities around the world as well that, with our knowledge and our expertise, that gold hydrogen could, reach out into other areas of Australia and the world. But primarily right now, our focus is to get the ultimate success for gold hydrogen and our shareholders.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Neil.
Well, I mean, we've reached the end of this podcast. It's been fantastic to talk with you, Neil. I'm very happy we got gold hydrogen here, and we can start bringing people on, bringing more guests, and very interesting companies like gold hydrogen. One of the things I wanted to talk about was we have a 2025 investor report out there. I've mentioned it at the beginning. Gold hydrogen is actually on there. You can find the information to check their share price, the acreage, all of that is there. And also you can check out Neil's LinkedIn from there. It's actually there if you want to check it out. It's on our website, nath2investing.com. Just go there. You'll see the form to sign up. It will sign you up for our newsletter as well. And remember, you can subscribe to us, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on YouTube as well. Thank you again, Neil, for coming. It's great to have you.
Hey, look, it's been my pleasure, and I'd like to thank you both today to discuss it. It's great. We're all passionate about this, so it's been a joy, and I'd like to thank Natural Hydrogen Ventures and for putting this on. And I'm always available to yourselves and any of your viewership in the future.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Neil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. See you in the next episode.
See you.